was going to wait till the kids are gone, but with the new baffling, I think it's quite enough. All right. So last spring, we kind of did a series, The Why Behind the What, just kind of bringing up different ministry leaders and just kind of letting them share the way they think about and their approach to the ministries that they do here. And I knew eventually I wanted to do this with Doug, but I didn't want to put him on the spot his first week here. But Doug and I have sat like this for hours.
Hours.
Yeah. So we were in New Mexico. We served together there. I did youth work. He did the preaching work. But during the lockdown times in New Mexico, we did this. So between this thing right here and kettlebell swings, that's all I recall of any of the COVID lockdown times. That's it. I have kettlebell swings in my mind and this.
And I didn't do kettlebell swings, so obviously. So we spent a lot of time sitting in front of a table and in front of a camera and going through the Psalms and so this is my most enjoyable format way of teaching is getting to sit across from someone and discuss and somebody to make fun of.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm here for.
Make fun of.
So you are the newish. We can call you new still.
You can call me whatever you want.
Did you start in June? July?
Yeah, somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
A long time ago.
So like a real 60 seconds, give us a brief bio and maybe your favorite thing that you've discovered thus far.
In 60 seconds,
go.
I can't do any. Okay.
No,
he's going to have a taser if I'm over 60 seconds. My name is Doug Crum. I am married to my beautiful bride, Jennifer of, let's see, it's 28 years, something around 27 years. I don't know what year we're in, 27. I have 3 children. My oldest is White. He just got married this last summer. Lily, where are you? Lily's right here. And then Gracie. Lily's heading off to Abilene ACU next week. So we're going through the happy, sad phase. And Gracie is in 8th grade. And she also is going through the happy, sad phase because she's a middle schooler. That was less than 60 seconds.
Probably. But you didn't tell us one of your favorite things about Austin Ave / Brownwood.
Oh, man. So many. Oh, the singing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the singing. You folks can really, really sing. So.
Okay, so I want to jump into the deep end just a little bit. I have a lot of friends that are in ministry. I know what you're going to say. You'll let it go.
You have a lot of friends.
We've been to ministry seminars, and one of the things about ministry, I think about preaching particularly, is sometimes people who do it feel lonely. You don't seem to feel that way. Kind of, what's your secret?
I would love to say that I don't ever feel lonely, but there are some times that myself and other people probably can say the same thing. Sometimes you can be in a room full of people and feel lonely. Right. And so there are some of those days, but, I'll say it because it's true that I have good friends like you that kind of help keep me grounded. I have an amazing wife. She is my best friend by far. And so having some good friends can help prevent some of that. And they're and my closest friends know that I need some of that extra attention every once in a while, and they help fill me up.
Yeah, and like attention from ministry is different than like normal one-to-one interactions, and sometimes that doesn't always come across because you get quite a bit of attention, right, when you're up there preaching. But
I've been here like 3 weeks, and I've been called Cookie Monster by everybody.
Okay, so you did 7 years in a youth ministry position, and then another 7 is kind of involvement, associate, something or other. How did that kind of inform your desire to preach? Was it all building towards that, or was that kind of a surprise?
It was. No, I think from the very beginning, I knew at some point I wanted to preach. That was my desire. That's what I love to do. But I also knew that there was a lot more to preaching than just standing up in front of a group of people. And definitely my skills in that area needed to be honed and still do. But I knew that I needed to learn more about ministry. And I only half jokingly say, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I only half jokingly say that I started off in youth ministry and I got demoted to involvement ministry. And then I got demoted into preaching ministry, right? I mean, there's something about being around kids and just that vibrancy and that excitement and just all the things that are going on. But yes, I've always loved to preach and anybody who'll listen, I love to talk about Jesus.
So, was there a moment though that you can look back on? There's like, that's the day that I knew that I wanted to be behind that pulpit 50 times a year.
Well, I jokingly told someone just a few days ago, we were talking about song leading. And I said, they talked about when they started song leading. And I said, well, the day that they wanted me to stop leading songs was the day that I couldn't stand up on the front pew anymore and lead from the front. And so it was about that time that I said, okay, I can't be a song leader. Nobody wants to hear me sing, but man, I just still love to talk about Jesus. So
before I said yes to Jesus, I remember sitting in a pew saying, if I become a Christian, I'm so scared God is going to make me be a preacher. So
and,
I'm still holding
yeah, and God elbowed one of his angels and said, hey, watch this.
Yeah.
He will learn how much he must suffer for me.
Any mentors that you've had specifically in kind of the preaching role?
Yes, a couple. One of them in particular, somewhat in the preaching role, but really just in the ministry role, is when I first started off in youth ministry. This is weird. I was a youth intern for, well, I was in a small church. We never had a youth minister. And then I became a youth ministry major. I was an intern for 2 years. I never worked under a youth minister. I just actually three summers I did that. And then I started working and I became a youth minister, and I had never worked under a youth minister. I'd never had a youth minister, but there was a guy named Terry Kitson who was in Arlington. I was serving in Mansfield, and he really just took me under his wing and just showed me what ministry was about, how to love people, how to try to be humble and to serve whenever you can. And so he informed me more than anybody else.
Yeah. That's cool. Do you preach like him, like style wise,
No.
approach to the text?
No,
Or
we do have very different styles, but he also has the ability to minister, and I'll use this word carefully because some people probably don't like it, but one thing he is super good at is he's a really good pastor. He really knows he's great at counseling. He's great at one-on-one. And that's something that I've really tried to model in my life is his ability to listen and offer wisdom and show love. So,
yeah. And you're really good at those things too.
Well, I don't
Hospital visit, Doug is really good. Be careful, be safe, but if you end up there, Doug's a good visitor to have. Okay, so let's nerd out on preaching styles.
Okay.
A little bit.
Okay.
Not everybody is aware of this, but there's several different ways to preach, right? So expository preaching is when you expose the text. You kind of camp out on 2 or 3 verses, and you haven't been here for very long. And normally these styles of preaching are kind of subtle, but like you're pretty obvious.
Yeah,
So
there's no other way.
This is Doug's style. Like we've had the same picture on the bulletin for like 3 weeks because we've been in the same text for like 3 weeks. When he moved to Hobbs, he did the Sermon on the Mount, and we did a skit with the youth group kids. And one of the kids said, "Turn to Matthew 5 and stay there for the next 2 years." Because
yeah.
So that's your style.
Expository is absolutely my style. I don't like to rush through things. For those of you who, are kind enough to show up on Sunday nights, you know what that's about. We have been in Philippians for probably 6 weeks, and I think we're somewhere on verse on verse like 12 or 13 or something like 14. So yeah, I like to go through real slow. I like to examine it. I like to see what can we really learn from this. I think it's a great way to do it. I don't want to rush through passages.
And so topical is when you're like, we're going to talk about sin or whatever, and you go find
Yeah.
5 different
Yeah.
verses about
Yeah.
sin. Textual kind of big ideas when like you might get through the entire parable of the prodigal son or something, but
Yeah.
you're not going like line by line. It's like the big idea about grace. Inductive narrative, I won't try to explain it. It's where you don't tell them what you want them to learn. You
Yeah.
kind of let them figure it out. So I say all of that to say this: why have you kind of chosen this style, and you're like all in on it?
I am all in on it because I just feel like every time that I read, there's something else I feel like the Lord is teaching me through. For those of you who like to read the Bible, and for those of you who don't, I encourage you to try it. You might like it, and even if you don't, just be faithful. But it seems like there's always something new that I can learn. Actually, this kind of one of your questions, I'll go ahead and go through it right now. I'm not a rerun type of preacher in that like I'll redo the same one over and over again. Most of the time, I won't even look at my notes if I've done something previously.
Oh, I do.
Because I just know that what I taught then has radically changed from how it's speaking to me now, and part of it I believe has to do with the Spirit, and part of it has to do my age and stage of life. Of like, oh, this is now I get this, and 10 years ago I was like, I had no clue.
Yeah.
And 10 years from now, I'll be saying the same thing.
So, have you ever heard a sermon or a style of preaching, and you're like, I'll never do that?
I'm not a big fan of the picking like one word and then doing like reading like 30 different verses from 30 different books. Like, let's talk about, love or sin or grace, and grace here and grace here. Well, Paul says this in grace. And I'm like, you probably could just land on one of those. And that's actually kind of the style that I grew up with, is that if the preacher didn't like mention at least 20 different verses with that same word in it, they really weren't a good preacher because they didn't know their Bible. And so I'm kind of like, I'd like to just sit in one place and not bounce around a lot.
And that was a dominant style of preaching.
It was.
For a generation.
It
I
was.
remember sitting there at my grandparents' church, and he would say something, and then like 7 citations afterwards, and
Yeah.
I'm a little kid going, I have no clue what any of this
Yeah.
means. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I know this one time I was visiting a church, and I remember the lesson, and I remember him like trying to fit in every teaching he had ever heard about Jonah. And I felt like that he thought we had bingo cards, and we were making sure that like he said everything everybody has ever said about it. And that day I said, when I get a chance to preach, I just want to say one thing.
yeah.
I'm not there to show off that, yes, I know 99 things, but I want to say one thing that I think is super important.
Yes.
And I think you do a great job of that when you preach. Okay, so let's talk about theology. Let's talk about things that maybe mean a lot to you. Is there a text? Is there a story? Is there an idea that kind of informs your preaching that you're like, I want to be like Stephen or anything like that?
There's a lot of them, and you're going to hear me say something, and I don't intentionally lie, but in the moment, with all my heart, I mean it. And there are a lot of times I'll stand up in front of you guys and I'll say, this is my favorite story.
You say that a lot.
This is my favorite verse. And in the moment, I really mean it. I'm just wishy-washy because then I read the next story and I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is my favorite. So yeah, I have a lot of favorite stories. But what I really like, and you kind of helped me with this, but this is something early on. I did do the Sermon on the Mount. It did take 9 months, and we did crawl through that. But I love the Sermon on the Mount because
I can't mock you for that one.
Yeah. The Sermon on the Mount, like just read Matthew 5, 6, and 7, and then like jot down all the different topics that it covers. It is incredible. And Jesus does not apologize for talking about some really hard topics. And he just goes through it. And so I like the Sermon on the Mount because it gives us an opportunity to say, okay, if Jesus wanted to talk about this, then I think we should address this.
Yeah.
And one thing that you've said after that really is helped me is it's a reminder not to have your pets. That if it's talked about in that passage, address it. If it's not, don't go to it.
That is the best thing about teaching through the text. Is Scripture's balanced. If you talk about any subject that's relevant to us as much as Scripture does, I think you're going to have a balanced ministry.
Yes.
Yeah. Which does get us, I mean, Jesus brings up some hard things to talk about, right? Can you imagine if you were the first one to say, if your eye causes you to sin, I think you should gouge it out, right?
Yeah.
But we can teach that because Jesus did. But there are a lot of texts that are, let's say they're PG-13 or uncomfortable. So what's your approach to that?
I am weird in a lot of ways, but whether it's a PG-13 text or a text that has a lot of tension, I gravitate heavily towards those. And it makes me a little uncomfortable. And oddly enough, I am very comfortable with looking at texts that challenge me and challenge my faith. You know, a few weeks ago, we did one of the more challenging texts that I've come across, and that's Jesus and the Syrophoenician woman. And there's a conversation that goes on that if you're not digging deep and you're just looking on the outset, there's some things that Jesus says that make you go, whoa, what's wrong here? It makes me feel very uncomfortable. Why does Jesus say this? And so I love to ask questions. And so if you listen to me, I want to encourage you as much as you might want to walk out or fall asleep or check out, is just go with me through that tension of, okay, the text literally says, I'm not going to throw crumbs to the dogs. Why would he say this? And live in that text for just a little bit of saying, I feel uncomfortable. What do we do with this?
Yeah.
So I think discomfort is an excellent way for us to learn and grow. And so I think sometimes the text provides us with that discomfort, so we can say, okay, what's really going on?
Yeah, absolutely. What are some prevailing themes that keep showing up in your preaching?
I think for me, and I think a lot of it has to do with I just grew up. I don't know why, but I grew up incredibly insecure. And that is the demon that always is on my back of just not feeling good enough and not feeling worthy. And so I think I resonate with the text most that speak of a God who loves and forgives, who welcomes back the wayward son. I have my favorite passage I'm not going to talk about because it's tucked away for a sermon in a few weeks, but just those times where, God shows compassion when Jesus is with the woman at the well. I mean, she is a nobody, and Jesus stops down and listens and changes her life, and through her changes an entire village. And I love where God uses people who are broken to allow really good things to happen. So those are the passages that I find myself going to. And then the flip is I like to feel comforted, but I'm also someone, for whatever reason, I guess it's because I'm the youngest of two boys, and I'm the little brother. I love to challenge people. I love to push them, and so that's the flip of that. So you don't find me in the middle. I'm either trying to offer comfort or I'm kind of poking the bear and kicking shins a little bit. So
as you're preparing to preach, do you find that you're finding out that God is revealing things about you, and you find yourself discovering things about God?
Yes, absolutely. And I know there's a lot of really great teachers in here. And you know that anytime that you're opening up a passage and you're reading, like it's transforming. I mean, the word of God transforms. Um, and I just, for me, I can't tell you how many times I've read a passage and thought, I feel like God is really speaking to me through this. So absolutely, I don't think I've ever just come across a passage and like, okay, let's do this. It's always been
I do
challenging.
find it different when I'm preparing to preach
Yeah,
a text than just doing my daily Bible
yeah,
reading. When yeah, there's times that I feel like I'm more vulnerable than what I want to be, but I mean, I feel
yeah,
like I can't help
yes,
but to do that, to go ahead and to tell the truth. And I don't know, it was during the COVID time, and I was writing a sermon that basically the theme that I kind of centered on is what happens after the worst day of your life. And I'm writing this sermon. I'm like, wait a minute, I preached this like 2 months ago. Like, obviously, there's something in my heart,
yeah.
right? And so, yeah, I mean, I find that both a challenge to be authentic, um, as far as like what I'm going through, but also to not devolve into just staring at my own navel. But yeah, it's
It's
tougher than people think.
it's hard not to do that latter too of just always going back to that one thing that
Yeah,
is speaking to you because there's a lot of different people and they are in a lot of different places in their life and they don't always need to hear what I'm struggling with and what I'm wrestling with. They also need to hear something that
and
speaks to them.
and back to that expository style of preaching, it kind of pulls you away from your own tendencies
Yes.
because sometimes the text is not talking about those things that you want to navel gaze
Yeah.
about. All right, so let's talk about how you actually put a sermon together. So, like, walk us through, Sunday at 12:01 until 12:01 the next Sunday.
Well,
What do you do to sermon
I
prep?
won't give you a dark look into my life, but noon at Sundays are pretty tough usually. That's when I become the Monday morning quarterback and look at all the things. I don't like to go back through my sermons because I don't like to hear what I say wrong or what I didn't like about it. But there's always just this, kind of working through that. Was did anything that I say was that led by the Spirit, and did it connect with people? So that's always a thought that I have. And then right now I'm in a series that I've never done before. Now all these verses that we are going through, all these stories, I've preached them before, but I've never preached them in the context of at the feet of Jesus. And in my opinion, like if I get to list like all my favorite stories, certainly in the New Testament, but almost all in the Bible, come from this series of just how Jesus dealt with people. So Monday, I already have a list. Probably a month ago or before that, I decided I was going to do this series. I went through and identified where are some passages that talk about people at the feet of Jesus. And so I've gone through, I think, about 4 over 7 weeks, right? Because one of them took 3 weeks, believe it or not. And so I will start that process. I will spend time in prayer. And then the next thing that I do, because I'm old, is that I have to print off my text. I used to just read it from the Bible. I can't do that anymore. You don't have anything here. Yours is too tiny. I have 16 font. Half of my page is the text, and the other half is a column of just lines. And so I'll just read through that text, and there will be lots and lots of questions. Why did he say this? What's going on here? Um, I don't fully understand this, or oh, I think that he's talking about this here, and so I'll go through that multiple times and spend as much time in prayer as I can, and then I'll start looking through commentaries and uh,
Anyone that you love to use commentary wise? I just ask because I have a lot of Bible classes.
yeah, I cannot tell you the name of it. I can tell you it's red, and it's not the old sweet red that's really thin. I think it's called a commentary for today. If anybody is interested, it's actually from the Brotherhood. It's they started printing them probably about 10 or 12 years ago with just one or two, and they've started adding more and more. And every time that they add one, I get one, and I just love the way that they do it. And so those are where I get most of mine. So if you have any interest in commentaries, come see me. I'll show you my office, and you can look at those, and you can borrow any one that you want, or
Except for Luke.
except for hey, except for Luke. So
No, because that's one that you've been preaching
yes,
through.
yes.
So yeah, we won't have
Yeah.
a sermon on Sunday if you
Yeah.
take Luke's.
It'd be really short, so everybody's like, "Oh, grab it quick."
So do you actually practice through it word for word?
I do sometimes, and this is the weird thing, and I don't know if most people are like this, but every time I go through a sermon, it evolves and changes. And I'm not saying in the better, it might not be, but every time that I go through it, I one of the questions that you have on here that I don't know if I have time for, but I'll jump into it anyway. It's a question I love to ask other preachers. What do your notes look like? And I go back and forth. What I really prefer to do is to just have bullet points of a few words. And I love to just, if I'm as familiar with my notes as I want to be, I want to be able to, just in case I get lost, I can look down and say, okay, here's where I want to go next. Sometimes I try to get too clever in how I word things. And so as I write those down, I think that's exactly what I want to say. And so I'll kind of manuscript a few things, which I like, except for the fact that, man, that can get you really handcuffed to your notes if you're like, I have to read this verbatim or it gets line by line or it gets lost. So, yeah, I do practice, but if you happen to walk in and hear me practicing, you're likely to hear something somewhat different. In a few days, it changes.
Do you time it out, or can you look at your notes and kind of know, or are you watching the time as you're preaching? How does that work?
Why am I getting so many giggles? Can we talk about this right now? Can we
Hey,
turn the mic around?
This is the one time that I'm on your side
Yeah.
because I know what it used to be.
So I have gone down.
We had classes after the assembly when
I'm
he got
leaving.
to Hobbs.
I'm not taking this anymore. No. So yeah, what
Some of them were over 40 minutes.
one of the
I finally had to do the math. It said, Doug, I get them in 7th grade. They graduate in 12th grade. You're taking 2 years off my Bible class if we do this every single Sunday.
Yeah, I did have. Yeah, I had a handful of times that I broke the 40-minute mark.
I'm on your side now, though. It's nowhere near that.
Yeah, it's not, and I have some people. So yes, I've tried to be very cognizant of my time, and I don't. I'm glad you asked that question. So then I get to get on my soapbox and talk
It's
about it.
7:07.
It is. I know. I'm
We got 8
watching.
minutes.
So I'm not trying to shortchange what worship should look like, and I'm not trying to shackle, what God might want to say, hopefully want to say through me in the time that I'm up there, right? So I'm not like, oh, any sermon over 30 minutes is bad. However, I also recognize that because of the culture that we live in and how our brains have been wired, that it is difficult to retain things the longer you go. In fact, there's been lots of studies that say, and TED Talks have done a lot to help us understand this, is that if you can say one good thing in 20 minutes, that's great. But the more you go, not only do they not retain what you say, they're more likely to lose that one thing that you wanted them to know. And so I'm just aware of, okay, if I want one message to get across, if there's one thing I want to say, but then I go on and say 3 or 4 more things, they didn't hear the 3 or 4 and then they forgot the first one.
Yeah.
So ideally, if I can be around 25 minutes, I'm not asking you, there's already been talks of trap doors. I know that there's a
I had
taser
nothing to do
floating
with
around
that.
here, but so I'm not trying to say, I don't think spending more time is worth it. I think our worship should extend well beyond when the preacher's done talking and even after we've left. So I just feel like I need to keep it short, which I didn't do then. Oh, 7:09. That's 2 minutes.
So let's
Soapbox
talk
done.
about that just a little bit. So in a given week, right now you're not teaching Sunday mornings, but you have some and will in the
yeah.
future.
Yeah.
So that's one.
So yeah, right
Great.
now I'm with a adult auditorium class, and so yeah, this is weird for me. I'm only teaching one Sunday morning a month,
Yeah.
which is
And-
crazy for me.
And I can vouch that in your former ministry,
Yeah.
it was 50 times a year that,
Yeah.
that you did both. But Sunday class, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, is it hard for you to juggle so many different ideas and books and series? And is that the best way for all of us as Christians to go from here to here to here to here? Or would we all be better off if we just kind of camped out on one thing for like a season of life?
Yeah, I think the latter probably would be better. I mean, if I got to choose, I have a general rule just when I'm reading. I don't like to read more than one book at a time. I'm not saying I hold 2 books and take it, you know what I mean? Like I want to completely finish one book because my brain just can't process that. But I also recognize that there's opportunities and so I have to have like kind of clear mark off times. And so I'll most of my week, not most, a good portion of my week will go to that sermon time and then the class time. And Sunday nights is just I have to just kind of flip a switch and say, okay, right now we're in Philippians and I love it, and so it's easy. But yeah, Philippians for me. I have to kind of shift gears altogether.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a challenge, but I mean,
Is the actual voice or energy sometimes just not there when you're teaching for the 6th time in a week?
that's a question you would have to ask these folks. As far as I'm concerned, like I am too easily excitable. And I think most people on Sunday nights would say he probably is a little too wired up. He needs to lay off the caffeine. So I don't feel like that. But yeah, I will say this: when Sunday night is over, that's usually about a 12-hour day for me.
Yeah.
So I'm usually pretty exhausted then.
So how much feedback do you get from people in a typical week, good or bad?
I think people are either too kind here or they're not entirely honest. Because and even in Hobbs, I guess I've been preaching for about 13 years. I can only think of, and I know this could change, but I can only think of just really a couple of times maybe where somebody's come up and said, boy, I just don't really like you, or I don't like what you had to say. And it's weird because I
How many of those
invite,
times were me though?
oh yeah, all of them.
Joking.
Well, yeah. I invite disagreement. I invite somebody to come up and say, you know what, I really disagree with how you interpret this passage. I think it happened completely different. And there's a really good chance that I could say, yeah, you know what, I think you're right. Like I don't pretend to know it. And even at this is one thing super fast, but like everybody has a different way in which they view Jesus, right? And the way in which I view Jesus is through a specific set of lenses that have been created, crafted over all these years and all these experiences, some of which happen in church and some of them different. And so everybody thinks a little bit differently. And so I welcome that. And so if you say, you know what, I really didn't think that passage, or I read it a different way, and especially in class settings, but I'll even say it in a preaching setting, is I almost always say, boy, I really wish you would speak up and share that, because that's a really good thought that other people might have. And it's not one that I had, and I would love for other people to get to hear it. So if you are in one of my classes, I love to teach more than preaching. Please say, I have a thought, or I think you're wrong, or this is how I see it. I think you have a lot more collective wisdom than I'll ever have. And so for me to sit up there and say, this is the way it is, and it's no other way. But I do not get a lot of criticism. I do not think that means that I'm a particularly good preacher. I just think that you guys are really nice and kind. So
Have you ever totally just bombed and you knew you bombed? And what did you learn from it?
what did I learn from it?
We're moving into the lightning round because
yeah, Brant's back there. Just chalk it up to being that wasn't the best, and just not beat myself up over it. And I'm terrible at that. I'm terrible at not beating myself up. But
I made a decision because one time I bombed at camp. It was bad. I went like 40 minutes. I said, new rule: if you're bombing and you know you're bombing, just cut it short.
Yeah.
Because you can be long and good and you're good. You can be short and good and you're great. And you can be long and bad and you're probably fine. Or sorry, you can be short and bad and you're probably fine. But if you're long and bad, they hang you. I was 40 minutes long and 40 minutes bad this one time. And I was like, new rule: if you know it's going bad, just quit.
If you see a guy falling out of the window, and that's Eutychus, and Paul can get away with that, but he also was able to raise him from the dead. So I can't. So I try to keep it short enough that nobody passes out.
It'd be really funny if I just quit after I said that, but I don't think this has been bad. Last thing.
Okay,
If you could change one habit of all of us as listeners, either before, during, or after the sermon, what would you ask all of us to change?
That's an excellent question, and that was not on here, was it?
I didn't give you all of them. Just be conversational.
If you said what's the one thing that I could change about me, like let's go. I can talk about that for a lot. What would I change about my math teacher used to say this, and I thought she was weird and crazy. She said math is not a spectator sport. You have to get involved. I have failed. If I preach and you were to walk out and say, that's a good sermon, and you didn't do anything, it was not a good sermon, and I failed. And so my prayer is that anything that I say, whether you like it or not, my prayer is that it will jog you, encourage you to want to go deeper into that passage and go to your restaurant and talk about it at the table, and be thinking about that and allow it to transform your life. If I haven't done that, if you're just like, oh, okay, the next one down, there's 30 minutes of my life I'm not getting back, then I've failed. So just be doers.
All right. Well, I'm going to pray for you and for your ministry, and then we'll be close.
Okay.
Let's pray. Lord and God, I just thank you for my brother and my friend Doug. I thank you for his ministry, for his humility, for his heart, for the way that he loves you and serves you and shows you, and for the way that he loves your bride, Lord. I thank you for who he is as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a friend. But Lord, I thank you that you love us and that you chose us, and that we get to serve you and to know you, Lord. And I just pray for this body here, Lord, that we do as Doug just exhorted us to be doers of the word and not only hearers of the word. It's in the name of Christ that we pray. Amen. We are dismissed.